On September 8, 2025, at a tow yard in Hollywood, workers discovered the decomposed body of a young girl inside an impounded Tesla. The car, registered to the musician David, had reportedly been abandoned in the Hollywood Hills before being towed. When the vehicle arrived at the shop, employees noticed a strong foul odor coming from the trunk. Police were called, and after opening the trunk, they found a body stuffed inside a black bag. The victim, who was later identified as 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, a girl from Lake Elsinore, California, who had been reported missing the year before, in 2024. This discovery alone was shocking, but the name on the vehicle brought even more attention. So before we get into the timeline of the case, let's discuss who David is and how he rose to fame. David, born David Anthony Burke on March 28, 2005, in Queens, New York, would later move with his family to Houston, Texas, where he spent most of his childhood. His early life was fairly normal, but after 7th grade, his parents decided to homeschool him. This change left David feeling isolated from other kids his own age, and he would later go on to say in interviews that he often lived vicariously through the experiences of his online friends. David grew up religious and was raised in the church, and until around age 13, he listened almost exclusively to gospel music. He grew up singing in the church choir and even playing the piano. But despite that background, he never imagined himself performing on stage or even pursuing music professionally. David's first real passion wasn't even music, it was gaming. He started out on YouTube posting Fortnite montages, editing clips and highlights like many other players at the time. But because he used copyrighted music in those videos, they were frequently flagged or taken down. Looking for a solution, he decided to make his own royalty-free songs, instead of searching for pre-made tracks. He uploaded these early songs like You and I, Take Me to the Sun, and Runaway to SoundCloud, and created the stage name David, mainly to help his gaming content show up in search results. At first, these songs were made just to support his videos, nothing more, but that changed in July of 2022, when he released the song Romantic Homicide. A short clip of the track went viral on TikTok, spreading rapidly across the platform. The song took off, charting at number 3 on the Hot Alternative Songs chart, and reaching number 33 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming his first song to enter the chart. The viral success caught the attention of Darkroom and Interscope Records, who would reach out to him shortly after and would sign him to the label in September of 2022. Before Romantic Homicide had even blown up, David had already uploaded another track, Here With Me, to SoundCloud. After being released to streaming platforms that same September, it also went viral on TikTok and entered multiple charts, including the US Billboard Hot 100 at number 60, and it even reached the top 10 in Singapore. What made his rise even more remarkable was that nearly all of these early songs were produced using BandLab, which is a free digital audio workstation that he used and recorded all his songs from his bedroom closet. David's fame continued to grow at a rapid pace. On May 26, 2023, he released his debut EP, Petals to Thorns, which would be followed up later that year by a second EP, The Lost Petals, on September 8th. By this point, David had become a well-known online name, gaining millions of followers across platforms like TikTok and Instagram. His momentum was strong enough that he was invited to open for SZA on her SOS tour, exposing him to even a larger audience. Riding that wave of success, he entered 2025 by releasing the single One More Dance, while preparing for his first studio album, Withered. After the album dropped, David launched his accompanying tour, which began in August of 2025. It was during this period, while he was actively touring, that the body of Celeste Hernandez was discovered in the Tesla registered in his name. Now that you understand the early life and rise of musician David Burke, better known as David, let's talk about the investigation that followed, and what we know today. On September 8, 2025, while David was on his Withered tour, performing at the Fillmore in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a discovery was made hundreds of miles away that would change the entire course of his year and potentially his life. That same day, the badly decomposed body of Celeste Rivas Hernandez was found inside the Tesla at a tow yard in Hollywood. An LAPD captain would later state in an interview that Celeste's body was partially dismembered, though not fully decapitated, a detail that raised even more questions about what had happened to her. The Tesla, registered in David's name, had originally been parked on Bluebird Avenue in the Hollywood Hills. It was first spotted abandoned sometime in August, and on September 3rd it was ticketed for violating the local 72-hour parking law. 2 days after that, on September 5th, the vehicle would be towed and impounded. The LAPD would go on to later confirm that the body was found almost 11 days after the initial parking violation, and investigators believe Celeste's remains had been inside the vehicle the entire time it sat on the street. About 8 days after the discovery, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner officially identified the remains as belonging to Celeste Rivas Hernandez, a 14-year-old from Lake Elsinore, who had turned 15 just 1 day before she was found. Authorities believe she had been killed long before the vehicle was impounded. But before we go deeper into this investigation, another question needs to be answered. Who was Celeste Hernandez? Before Celeste's body was discovered, she had already been the subject of multiple missing person reports throughout 2024. She was from Lake Elsinore in Riverside County, California, roughly 80 miles from where her remains would ultimately be found. In the year leading up to that discovery, Celeste had gone missing at least 3 separate times. The first was on Valentine's Day in 2024, when she ran away from her home but ultimately returned a few days later. Her family would report her missing again on March 19th, and once more she eventually came back. Sadly, on April 5th, 2024, when Celeste was just 13 years old and in the 7th grade, she was reported missing for the 3rd and final time. After that point, her family did everything they could. They met with police repeatedly, combed through neighborhood surveillance footage, and begged neighbors and friends for any information. They did receive one brief glimmer of hope. Celeste reportedly called home in May of 2024, but the family never heard from her again after that moment. In the months before she vanished for the last time, Celeste had confided in her mother that she did have a boyfriend named David. Her mother would later confirm that she was aware of this boyfriend David, but stating that she never met him in person. As the investigation pressed forward, a disturbing new layer began to surface, one that shifted public perception dramatically. The death of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas took on an even darker tone when old Discord chats involving the musician David began resurfacing online. Screenshots dating back to 2022 appear to show conversations between David and a user named Celeste. If this is believed to be Celeste Hernandez, she would have only been 11 years old at the time of these messages. The messages weren't explicit, but they showed familiarity, just enough to raise questions about the nature of their connection. By 2024, members of his Discord community were openly discussing rumors that the two had some kind of relationship. In one resurfaced exchange, David is seen asking if Celeste was present in the server, followed by a response from a user with that same name. The context of the conversation remains unclear, but many on social media have described the messages as deeply concerning, urging anyone with credible information to forward it to authorities. One ex-user pointed out something even more unsettling. Last year, someone mentioned her name in his Discord server, and it became their last message, implying that the user might have been banned shortly after, supposedly by David or someone close to him. These revived screenshots ignited widespread scrutiny, sparking debates about the dangers of parasocial relationships. the blurred boundaries between influencers and their fan communities, and the vulnerability of underage audiences. Other leaked messages from the server showed David casually telling fans he had a child on the way, which was expected to be born in March. A user responded to him, yet their account now appears only as deleted user. Many believe that this person was also Celeste, though this remains unconfirmed. Speculation escalated even further when a Reddit user claimed that the friends of Celeste had been bribed into silence by David, back when she was still in the 8th grade. While these allegations have not been formally verified, their circulation added fuel to an already volatile situation, deepening public outrage and painting a picture that, for many, completely reframed the narrative surrounding Celeste's disappearance and death. While these Discord messages were circulating online, another detail emerged, one that added yet another unsettling wrinkle to the case. When Celeste's body was examined, investigators noted a small tattoo on her right index finger that read, "Shh." On the surface, it didn't seem unusual. The tattoo has been popular for years, worn by celebrities like Lindsay Lohan, Katy Perry, and Rihanna, since it first went viral all the way back in 2008. Plenty of everyday people have it too, so it's not exactly rare. But what did raise eyebrows was the fact that David has the exact same tattoo. For some, it was nothing more than a strange coincidence, but for others, it felt more like one more puzzle piece. Small and subtle, but impossible to ignore. On November 18th, 2025, the case took a major turn. David was officially announced as a suspect in the murder of Celeste. This development shocked both fans and investigators, especially considering how cooperative he had reportedly been in the early stages of the investigation. Back in September, when Celeste's body was first discovered inside the Tesla, David had been described as fully compliant, answering questions, providing information, and insisting he had nothing to hide. But nearly 2 months later, that cooperation abruptly vanished. By late November, the LAPD confirmed that David was no longer cooperating with authorities, refusing further interviews and declining to provide additional statements. As of December 6, despite being named a suspect, David has not been formally charged with any crime connected to Celeste's death. Detectives have stated publicly that the investigation remains active and ongoing, and that new evidence, both digital and forensic, is still being reviewed. However, the sudden shift in David's willingness to assist investigators has only intensified public suspicion, fueling online speculation and deepening the mystery surrounding Celeste's final days. As the case stands today, the investigation into the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez remains painfully unresolved. Her story, threaded through missing person reports, abandoned vehicles, resurfaced Discord chats, and the digital footprints of people who once crossed her path, has become far more complex than anyone expected. Every new detail adds another question, another contradiction, another reason to believe that the truth of what happened to Celeste is still far from the surface. Detectives are continuing to review evidence, from phone logs to server activity to interviews with anyone who might have known her. But even with growing public pressure, a clear narrative has yet to emerge. What has emerged, though, is a disturbing pattern of connections that investigators can't ignore. How did Celeste end up in a car registered to someone she reportedly knew years earlier? Why did that person stop cooperating just as the case began to sharpen? And what should we make of the conversations and whispers from his own online communities? Some deleted, some archived, but all hinting that this connection went deeper than fans ever realized. Through all the speculation and all the theories, one fact remains unshakable. Celeste was a child. She had a family who searched for her, friends who missed her, and a future she never got the chance to live. Her life was ended violently, hidden in the trunk of a car miles away from home, left to decompose in silence while the world kept moving. Her family waited more than a year for answers, Now the world waits with them. Until someone is charged, until the full timeline is recovered, the mystery of Celeste's final hours remains a haunting, open wound. Someone knows what really happened. Someone knows how she died. Someone knows why she never made it back home. And even though those answers are still out of reach, cases like this don't stay quiet forever. The truth has a way of showing up, eventually. The investigation is ongoing, the pressure is rising, and justice for Celeste is still possible. Until then, we remember her, and we keep asking the questions that still don't have answers.